Hey everyone, welcome to Cuberviews episode 28. This is your host Ian Braverman. I hope you're having a great day. Today I am joined by Joe Anderson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm always doing great. I'm Joe Anderson.
You're a ball of energy. And yeah, we met a couple times, like at the first CubeCon. It was great getting to know you and playing Cube with you. And I had my Peasant Cube featured at that event, and you actually gave me a poster of my cube. It said like four people cube or something because I didn't have a
Yes.
description.
Yes. J-Bro was posting a thing about movie posters done as cube things. And so then I went through and I got a subscription to Canva, which is $15 a month. It's a cheap little like poster editing software. And I just spent like a weekend going through and making posters for all of the main event featured cubes. And I would go to the cube link, I would look through the cube, I would look at the description, and then I would just make a nice little beautiful poster based on the cube. Some of them, there was a lot of interesting stuff. There was another peasant cube that had a massive description. I think it was Eric's peasant cube.
Yeah,
Peasant
the
Plus.
Peasant Plus cube.
Yeah,
Everyone go
Peasant
check
Plus.
out that episode.
Boom, there you go. So I made a whole little thing with like a farmer's market style poster, like, the common people getting together and growing our own stuff and making it a little extra. I had to do like 20 cubes in a weekend. And I got to yours, and it was just a peasant cube, and there was no description. And it was, this is a brand new cube and doubling season art. And I was like, all right, cardboard box poster that starts out like from Canva as a like, how can we help the downtrodden in our community, the homeless, the hungry? And I was just like, please give us some money for a cube description. Help us to have this cube have a little bit more life.
Yeah,
Um, so, anyways.
that shocked me the core because I really didn't realize that having a cube description was important. I just thought, oh, you just put your list on there and it looks good. And a
I
lot of my cubes
apologize.
still just have like 5 words, so I guess I haven't learned too much.
My cube descriptions aren't great, but I don't submit my cubes to events, so it's fine.
And you're also the host of the California Cube Championships. Everyone go check that out. Tickets will be going on sale soon, or if they're not already on sale by the time this episode comes out. And the event's going to be October 4th and 5th. Tell us about that.
So I went to CubeCon year one. I thought, this is great. I love playing Cube. This was a wonderful event. I see how it's done. Madison, Wisconsin is very far from me. It is 2,000 miles. It is two-thirds of the US. It is a full day of travel either direction. I went to CubeCon 1 and I was like, this is pretty cool. I bet I could do it myself locally. It's kind of like that Bender meme from Futurama. And so I started planning and I went to CubeCon in October and I hosted the first Cali Cube Champs in June that next year. I then hosted another one last year. This year, I am hosting it for the third time. I'm working with the same LGS I've worked with for the last two times, but instead of hosting it at the LGS store, which we have fully filled up. The first year we had 64, the second year we had 96. This time we're going to be hosting it as part of a larger nerd convention that the LGS helps put on in our county. So last year they had a bunch of Warhammer stuff and they had a bunch of comics, but their little magic part was kind of lacking. And so now we're going to have food trucks, we're going to have better bathrooms, we're going to have better air conditioning, and we're still going to hover around 100 people or so.
That sounds like such a blast for people who haven't really gone to Cube events before. I love Cube events. I've gone to, of course, CubeCon. I definitely plan on going again this year. I've gone to Boston Cube Party. I've gone to Cube for a Cause, Vertex Philadelphia. If there are Cube events in your area, and there definitely are a lot of them popping up across the country, check them out. They're such a blast.
I fully recommend and second everything you just said there, except for the part about there definitely are. Being on the West Coast, there is one in Seattle that I have gone to last year, and then I'm going to this year also. And then there is my event that I have to organize and put on. And then the next closest one is in Wisconsin, which is
Oh,
2,000 miles away.
I guess I'm just privileged being on the East Coast. There are a bunch here.
The Northeast Corridor has more cube events than the rest of the world put together, mostly.
Yeah. And you're also the host of a Cube podcast, sort of, called Joe's Week in Magic. Tell us about that.
Basically, I like to hear myself talk, and I like to talk about my sick brags or poor luck or whatever. And I have a lot of friends that live in different places around the country or that live locally and I don't get to see every week. who play Magic and like talking with me, and I like to relate my stories to. Also, my husband at one point said, Joe, I love you, but if you talk to me about Magic for another 20 minutes, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I make a weekly podcast where I talk into the void about Magic while my cats jump on my lap. I've done about 20 episodes now. They vary in length. I think my shortest is like 10 minutes and my longest is a little over an hour. It was recorded at 2:30 in the morning in the Denver airport. And it's about Cube. It's about mostly Cube as a player rather than Cube as a designer. And it's also just about my life and the things that I've been going through. I came out to my parents in the last few months, and that was a whole big thing. And just dealing with a whole bunch of big dramatic things in the world. So that's the long and the short of it. If you want to get better at cube design, listen to, this thing or Lucky Paper Radio or Uber Cube or Cade's podcast or whatever. If you want to have the audio version of like watching an LSV cube draft while he's like half paying attention and also like talking to his wife or something, that is my podcast.
It's your life through the vessel of magic.
Exactly.
Wonderful. And I mention it every week, but if you happen to be in the Avon, Connecticut area, we cube every week at Games IRL. It's my local game store, and we're always looking for more cubers. So come check us out if you happen to be in the area.
And if you happen to be in the area of Santa Rosa, California, or Sonoma County, wine country, about an hour north of San Francisco, talk to me because I also cube every week at my house, every Tuesday night. I've been doing that since about 2019. We took a break for COVID and then started back up in about 2021 with masks and all that. I make everybody food. I provide the cubes. I provide the mats. I provide the dice. We play a wide variety of different cubes. We've been going strong for a while.
Show up hungry and ready to play Magic.
Yep.
Sounds awesome. And tell us a little about your history with Magic and Cube.
I have been into all sorts of nerdy games my entire life. Since I was a very young kid, I read very early. I was very into board games and card games and all sorts of stuff. I played a bunch of this one board game called Heroescape that you may have heard of. You build the terrain and then...
I loved that game.
It's
I
great.
think I still have the pieces somewhere. I might have sold them at some point. I loved that game.
So I played a bunch of Heroescape. My brother is 2 years younger than me. And then we had very good friends at church that were another set of brothers. We really loved that game. The game had gone out of business by the time we were 5. So we started playing it like after it had gone out of business. I went off to college and I played a bunch of board games. I was in a little gaming club at American University in Washington, D.C. And there was one United Gaming Club that had all of the role-playing games, had all of the video games, had all of the board games, all those like little parts of it. And there was only one game that was banned from that club. And that was Magic the Gathering.
Wow.
Because the Magic the Gathering players were so toxic in comparison to everything else that everyone else got along. And then there was a separate Magic club that we did not talk to that like rented out other rooms down the hallway from the rest of us. I went to college for a year. I had a really rough time with depression, dropped out, came back home, started going to the junior college here. I started playing Hearthstone a bunch on my computer, and that was great.
Hearthstone.
Really fun game. And my friend James, who was again one of those brothers that we played 7th Sea and all these other games growing up with, he said, "Hey Joe, I got into this new game called Magic the Gathering. You would really like it." And I said, "No, I'm not going to start playing Magic, James, because I want to have a girlfriend." I was a 19-year-old.
You're already in the board game club all the time.
Yeah, no, I was in all these other things. Okay, I was a super nerd. I knew that, but I just didn't want to be associated with misogynists. That was the difference. Anyways, when I was about 10, my friend James and I had a friend who grew up with us down here at church, but had moved away and tried to teach us Magic the Gathering at that point. And we said, no, this is weird. A decade later, that person came down and I started dating them. And as I was dating them, they were like, "Oh, yeah, I really like Magic the Gathering. I used to play that. That's great." And I was like, okay, if my best friend's into it and my girlfriend's into it, and I have a girlfriend now, I can start. That person is now my husband. So we got married and then they transitioned to being a man. So it is true that if you play Magic the Gathering, you don't get a girlfriend, but that's fine. You get a happy husband. But anyways, I started playing in 2015. I was not good at Magic when I started. So my friend James loved to play Standard. He still loves any 60-card constructed format. He plays Modern, Legacy, and Pioneer, and anything else that he can get his hands on. And so he would always try and get me to play those. And I hated it because I would show up at the tournament with somebody else's deck that I borrowed or that I was told to borrow, pay $5, and then sit there for 3 hours as I lost every game. And then I learned about draft, and I was like, wow, I can show up, I can pay $15, still lose every game, but I go home with new cards. So while I was drafting, I started getting more into drafting pretty much around the same time as Anthony and Andy from Lucky Paper. You know, Amonkhet, Ixalan, that's when I really started playing a bunch of drafts and starting to get good at drafts rather than just losing all the time. I would go 2-1 and I would be so excited. And I had a draft where I had, again, rare drafting, picking whatever rares I see and every foil I see. I had opened a irrigated farmland, which is the blue-green cycling land. And my first round opponent saw me play it in some garbage deck, and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to trade you for that for my cube." And I said, "Oh yeah, trade cards. I love trading cards. Let's trade cards. What's a cube?"
And that's where life went downhill.
Oh no, that's where life hit the nitrous,
The
hit
turbo button.
started going. So I drafted his cube the second time it was ever drafted because he had built it and then talked to me about this like a month later. Then the third time it was ever drafted, I actually hosted it at my house. He only launched if he had exactly 8 people. If we had 9, somebody had to sit out. It was a 540 cube. If we had 7, the thing was called off. So in a year, we launched 6 times. I had a problem with that.
So would people like show up and then you'd be like, goodbye?
He would try and put it together, and then somebody 20 minutes before would be like, "Hey, sorry, my cat's puking. I can't make it," or something. And then, all right, cube's canceled. See you all in a month, maybe.
Oh,
But the second time I ever played Cube, I remember I beat Kent, the owner of the Cube, going 3-0 with mono red aggro.
you love your mono red. You kicked my
I
butt at CubeCon with mono red.
I love mono red. He took his cube apart because it didn't launch enough. And I took all of my commander decks and I took them apart on the floor and I opened up Cube Tutor because that was the thing back in the day before Cube Cobra existed. And I looked at Ben's cube and I had watched LSV play the Moto cube a few times, but I had never opened Moto. And between Ben's cube, my remembrances of Kent's cube that I had played 6 times, LSV's things, and my commander decks, I built my own cube.
That's how I built my first cube too, just out of commander stuff I had sitting around.
To be clear, this was not sitting around. I took my commander decks, sacrificed them, ripped them
Oh
apart,
yeah, same.
and I was like, let's make it happen. I just started drafting every Tuesday night, and that same little cube that I started with has morphed into my Anarchy cube. It's been drafted about 250 times, and it's awesome.
I love it. And what are some of your hobbies outside of Magic? And what do you do for work?
So I work with my father. I do high-end residential custom cabinets. He makes really, really fancy cabinets for very, very wealthy people in the Bay Area. So we do a lot of work in like fancy wine areas, fancy cabins up in Tahoe, and I work in the office doing AutoCAD drawings.
Very cool. And we have a unique topic to talk about today, which is draft matters cards and different ways you could augment a draft. Some of my favorite formats ever were Conspiracy, the Unsets, that were just filled with these cards that would just affect draft in weird and wacky ways. Like when you drafted the card, something would happen, or you could get a card from your sideboard, or you could open up another pack. We're going to be talking about all different ways you could spice up your cube life.
Exactly, exactly. So funny, wacky corner edges. That's actually one of the things that got me into Magic. I didn't mention this, but as my friend James was trying to convince me to get into Magic and I was coming from Hearthstone, I opened up a gatherer search for all of the uncards.
Yup.
Spent like 5 days just going through page after page of gatherer, reading every uncard and thinking about like, oh, this one gets a bonus when you high five someone. That's so cool and weird. This one like cares about whether your opponent is wearing denim. Like that's so funny. And I actually play with a couple of little custom cards in my cube. I had one that for a while cared about whether you lost a game to the opponent. So it was a strip mine effect called Salt Mine that either blew up a snow land or if you had lost a game and there were therefore salty, it blew up any land.
Oh, yeah. That's sweet. I would say the unsets have made some of my favorite cards, but also the least favorite cards. Like I do a lot of chaos draft and it'll be like
Yeah.
multiplayer chaos draft. And sometimes we'll throw in just like really weird packs. And a few times they threw in like the old unset that had the gotcha cards. And oh my
Oh,
gosh, I don't think I've ever been as angry and salty as somebody playing the card Number Crunch that says whenever an opponent says a number, you can return it back to your hand and it's a bounce spell. one other player basically having a pact that, oh, I'll keep saying a number and we can just bouncy and stuff over and over again. I was gonna
I've
throw
had
the table and leave.
I've had similar experiences. One of my friends locally has an unspiracy cube where it's
Ooh,
spiracy plus unsets put together. And originally that was drafted and played multiplayer. It was so slow that we forced it to being 1v1 and he like rebuilt it. I had a Rupture Spire in my hand, which is not a good card. It's a land you have to pay one when it enters or you sacrifice it. And my opponent played a Topsy Turvy, which meant that the turn order is reversed and the order of the turn is reversed. So I went to my turn, did not get an untap step, could not play my Rupture Spire without it insta dying.
oh. And there are a lot of different types of draft matter cards, like I said, and I would say that there are some draft cards that I would say are pretty well known and included in a lot of cubes, like Lore Seeker. That's one of my favorite cards ever. There are a lot of different ways you could play with Lore Seeker, which, if people don't know, it's a 2 mana creature that when you draft it, you can add another pack to the draft. I love that card. It basically gives me an excuse to add an extra 15 cards to all of my cubes because, hey, got to have 50 more cards for the Lore Seeker. But you do Lore Seeker in a really unique way. You do it with a power pack.
Yes, I say that I play a powered cube. Anarchy Cube is a powered cube. However, when I first started with my regular group, sometimes people would want to play with power, sometimes people would want to not play with power. My friend James, in particular, who I've mentioned a few times, he's a black-green mid-range player that likes to play the most fair, grindy, boring decks you've ever heard or seen. So, you say, okay, we're going to add Time Walk and we're going to add a bunch of Moxen so people go fast. He doesn't like that. He wants to Thoughtseize on turn one, Tarmogoyf on turn two, Liliana the Veil turn three, and then just do nothing for another 75 turns as he beats you down, right?
Jund them out.
Gunned him out. So one of the compromises we did is I would play with Lore Seeker, and we had a power pack which contained the power nine and then some fun ones that we add in as the numbers increase. The idea was when you open Lore Seeker, you can choose to add the power pack or choose to add a normal pack. I've over time refined that and worked on that. And for the last like 200-ish drafts, 300-ish drafts, what I've done is when you open Lore Seeker, you add the power pack. The power pack contains exactly twice as many cards as there are players in the draft. So in a normal 8-player draft, that's 16 cards, but I draft with large varying numbers. So in this power pack, we have the 5 Moxen, Black Lotus, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Ancestral Recall, Time Walk. That's normal. That's great. That does not include Time Twister. Time Twister is in the main cube. Time Twister is not that much better than Wheel of Fortune that I am willing to put it in here.
It's lane power.
We play a couple of cards in my cube that you might not see elsewhere. Power Play and Backup Plan are both conspiracies from
Oh,
the set.
so good.
Power Play, you start every game on the play. Even when your opponent loses, you then start on the play again. As an aggro player, let me tell you the amount of times I've played this and just crushed my opponent into the dirt is very fun. The best part of the card also is you have to ask your opponent how they want to figure out who goes first. I like to have my opponent say like, oh, evens odds. I'll roll the die and then I'll pick it up and I'll turn it to the one that they said the opposite of. And they go, what? And I'm like, I have power play. I always go first. I win the die.
Oh my gosh.
Backup plan, you draw 2 opening hands of 7, you pick one, and then you go into your mulligans and stuff. So drawing 14 basically to start the game and picking your opening hand is possibly the best card in this pack. That and power play. Advantageous Proclamation, you have a 5-card smaller deck. So you play a 35-card deck. Double Stroke, you pick an instant or sorcery. When you cast it, you copy it. Gleemox, it's a 0-mana Mox, taps for 1 mana of any color, and it says this card is banned.
It's banned.
It's banned in all formats on MTGO. And then Contract from Below, which is 1 mana for a sorcery that you ante the top card of your deck, and then you discard your hand, and then you draw 7 cards. And when you play that in my cube, you do ante a card. And so I have cast it, trying to find my Tinker, anteed my Tinker, my opponent
Oh,
Orcish Bowmasters, and I lost not just that game, but every game for the rest of the night.
oh
Uh,
my gosh, yeah.
it was rough. And that's like the main, we have 8 players kind of stuff. We also sometimes play with Lutri, which is just a free companion. Petrified Lotus and Dull Mox, which are little custom cards that either add a colorless mana for 0 or add 3 colorless mana and you sacrifice it for 0, colorless Lotus, colorless Mox. And then I have 3 cards that are tributes to other card games.
Got
that
Pot
are
of Greed in here.
pretty funny. Yeah, Pot of Greed, 0 mana artifact, sacrifice it, draw two. Innervate, which is from Hearthstone.
Hearthstone, classic.
Yeah, tribal sorcery druid.
Oh, a druid.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
got the type because it's
it.
in Hearthstone. You can only play it as a druid. Add two mana of any combination of colors to your mana pool. And then Professor Oak's Hint, which is the one that I've had to nerf the most. Normal Professor Oak from Pokemon is way too good. Professor Oak's Hint, which is the nerfed version from Pokemon, still too good. Somebody explained that the way it works in Pokemon is you don't get a combat step kind of thing if you do one of those. So I have it as a zero mana sorcery. You cast it in your first main phase before combat. You draw X cards where X is seven minus the number of cards in your hands. You draw up to seven in hand, and then you end the turn. So you
That's
skip your
ridiculous.
combat, your second main, your land drop after that. It's still really good. I've seen people play Professor Oak's Hint and Contract from Below in like a blue green or black green deck with like a ton of mana dorks, and you just like go land, land, dork, 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 dork. One of these, draw seven. And that happened at CubeCon a couple times. It was pretty cool. And then we have Oko in there because I hate Oko and I don't think Oko should be in my cube, but we had
Oko
some
Broko.
Oko is Broko. We had some people up from San Francisco. We did a 1v1 draft. I made a cool little like funny photoshopped Oko that includes a bunch of San Francisco landmarks.
I thought that he was like smoking a pipe or something. I was trying
No,
to.
he's got a Giant's hat. He's holding the Golden Gate Bridge in his hand
Oh,
there.
that's what
The
that
little
is.
painted ladies down below are a set of Victorian houses in San Francisco. And then I made a bunch of custom food tokens for him that include various foods that were invented in San Francisco, like Irish coffees and fortune cookies and stuff like that.
Lovely.
So, Ian, I've picked out of this pack a billion times. You look at this giant pile of garbage crazy cards. You opened up Lore Seeker Pack 1. What do you think you would want to pick?
So I am a believer that while there are cards that are very powerful while you draw them, for example, Black Lotus, Professor Oak's Hint,
Contract from Bold.
Ancestral Recall, all of
Yeah.
those, they're only good when you draw them. So the best power, in my opinion, are the ones that you have all the time. And in most cube, that's Lutri. I pick Lutri all the time. But, and here we also have conspiracies. So the four conspiracies here, double stroke, that's for a specific card. And then advantageous proclamation.
You just have a 5 card smaller deck. So you have a 35 card deck.
That's very powerful. You get to cut cards. But shout out to Schmidt Word. I doubt that he listens to the show, but
He actually was in San Francisco for a very long time. He built the San Francisco Cube group that I then have gone down and played with a few times.
oh,
His people were actually some of the people that came up here and battled me to try and put Oko in my cube.
that's so funny. He was
So,
in Connecticut for a while too,
yeah.
and his cube had some strong stuff like backup plan and power play. So through him, I've learned that I think backup plan is one of the most broken cards ever. It basically means that you never have to mulligan and you always have a perfect hand. Power play is really good too, but I'm taking backup plan.
I think that's a good pick. Having played this and done this a bunch of times, basically power play, backup plan, time walk, and Black Lotus, maybe Mana Crypt or Soul Ring are the only things that are really like defensible, in my opinion, as like I'm in the first 3 picks, what am I picking? And all the other ones, you really need to have like an idea, right? Like I am going to have a recursive blue deck. I'm going to have a combo deck. I'm going to have a deck where I'm always trying to cast 3 drops.
With backup plan, if you draw two hands, you can play like 12 lands in your deck because you're just always gonna have the right number of lands.
I've had to mulligan with backup plan a few times. If you play it enough, you do have to end up mulliganing. Sometimes two
Ooh,
opening hands is not enough.
that's unfortunate.
Okay, moving on to other stuff. Cogwork Librarians?
Yes, so definitely let us know in the comments what you would take from that pack. Cogwork Librarian, as discussed, we mentioned it on episode 13 with Jake Grist. I love cubes that every player starts with a Cogwork Librarian. It's a ton of fun, and it's another card that I include in basically all my cubes. I start a cube with Lore Seeker and Cogwork Librarian. Cogwork Librarian is a hill giant. It's a 4 mana 3/3, so not very good stats-wise, but it says that you can take Cogwork Librarian, draft it face up, and then in a later pack, you can put the Cogwork Librarian back in the pack and take 2 cards in that pack. So Cogwork Librarian is amazing. I think it's almost as good as Power because it just lets you get the 2 perfect cards for your deck, which for me is usually just 2 fetch lands.
One other person who does that also, Keldon with the Bolt Cube. He makes the opening packs 1 card less than the 2 packs after it and has that extra card be a Cogwork Librarian. So whenever you draft the Bolt Cube with Keldon, you get to play with Cogwork Librarians also, but you have to spend your first pick taking them, basically.
Shout out to Keldon. Everyone go check out the Bolt Cube episode.
I play with Cogwork Librarians with every player starting with one in my Anarchy Cube. I started with one in the cube, and then people loved it so much I went up to four in the cube. And then people loved that so much, and I was looking for cube slots to make changes, and I just said, fine, everybody starts with one. My players now love Cogwork Librarians so much, and they want to start with one so bad that they beg anybody who brings a cube, can we just take Joe's Cogworks that are in a different sleeve and play with them in this cube too? And then complain, at least a couple of them complain whenever they see two cards in a pack, they can't take both of them. And they're like, oh man, we don't have Cogworks here. This is so rough. And I get a ton of new players through here. New people love this. They've played retail limited, they've done other things. They're like, oh, I have packs where I don't want anything, and I have other packs where I want two things. Cogwork has this whole level of strategy and like discussion and all that you can talk about. The short version that I have is it makes my players stop complaining. Or when they complain, you say, well, you could have taken a Cogwork earlier. And they go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it just shuts that down. People feel happier, even if they're not using it in the best way. Highly recommend it. I think every cube, no matter how strong or how weak, can do it. They kind of balance out. It just kind of is a smoothing effect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that if you have a cube, just put in 8 pieces of paper and say that these are Cogworks and try it out and see how it goes. And there are a ton of really unique other cards that are draft matter cards I'm excited to talk with you about. One of them, kind of in a similar vein to Cogwork, that lets you take one card extra from the pack, is Agent of Acquisition. It's a hilarious card that lets you draft the whole rest of the pack. I had it in my peasant cube for a little while. It ended up being a card that was just very awkward to play, but also very funny. And the thing is you take the whole rest of the pack, but then you skip the rest of the packs that are being passed around. And I think everyone at some point has had this pack that they open and they get past, and it's like, I need every card in this pack. I wish I could just take this whole pack. What's going on here? Now you can.
Yes, I've played with that agent acquisitions in my Anarchy cube for a few times, and I've played in a few other people's cubes. One of those times, I was playing my Anarchy cube with six people. We were doing a team draft. I was a black-blue control combo deck. I had like half of Doomsday. I had red fixing and half of the Splinter Twin combo, but I didn't have like a full win condition for anything. And then I saw a pack that had Thassa's Oracle, it had Splinter Twin, and it had some Planeswalker that could win the game. And I see this pack, and I'm like, great, there are four win conditions here. There are only five other drafters. I'm going to take Vampiric Tutor out of this pack, and I'm going to wheel a way for my deck to win the game. Two seats down from me, my friend Dan uses his Agent of Acquisitions. He is my teammate. He takes the entire pack because there's two red and green cards that he wants out of the pack. I proceed to go 0-3. My team loses. Dan only plays one of the red and green cards because he realized he actually didn't need that many four drops. And it was a real sour experience.
Oh no.
I have seen that happen a few times similarly, where somebody will take the entire pack because they see half of it that they want, but the other half people send around the table for signals. It's half of a combo. They took the fetch land and they're hoping to wheel the duel that they can get with it. And I think that unlike Cogwork, which incentivizes people to draft more focused decks and to leave packs that don't have things for them alone, Agent of Acquisitions is kind of more like WorldKnit, which is a conspiracy where you can play cards of any color, and it's more likely to actually mess up the draft because of the collateral damage. And then the person drafting it will look at the rest of the packs because you still look at them. You don't draft them, you look at them.
And there's just sadness every time.
Exactly.
It's like, no.
Oh no, wait a second. I took that pack, but then there was a better burn spell here. Oh, why did I take the one with counterspell instead of the mana drain? So whereas Cogwork kind of like lightens the mood of the room and makes everybody feel a little bit
Agent
better,
just makes everyone upset.
it just causes more problems and headache. And I am very much a vibes forward designer. So that's my take on those two.
Well, everyone, we just gave Agent Acquisition a 10 out of 10 review, as you can just hear.
It's like a 4 out of 10. Like it's not unplayably terrible bad. I would never put it in a cube. Cogworks, put it in any cube, think about it, see how your players like it. They'll probably enjoy it a bit. Agent, put it in a cube if you have players that are willing to have a little bit of fun and be a little bit more lighthearted about things. If you have somebody that's already a little bit salty, beware.
Put it in once in a while, maybe pepper it into a draft here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
And another really fun card is Canal Dredger. which lets you get everyone else's last pick. So when you draft it, you basically say to everybody, hey, your last pick is mine. And most of the time people say, whatever, who cares about the last pick? But when you're me and you go five color poop every time, you wheel those two color, three color cards that nobody wanted, and then your deck is insane.
I have played Canal Dredger in like two or three different cubes. A couple of my friends have made cubes starting from their bulk, and one of my friends built a cube kind of similar to my Anarchy cube, but more modular and sorted. And all of them have started with a Canal Dredger. One of my friends, Isaiah, who's drafted Storm and a bunch of other things, he drafts Anarchy cubes so often that one time he tried drafting without looking at the cards. What he would do is he would take a pack, he would look at the pack, he would decide whether or not to put a Cogwig Librarian in, and then he would turn the pack face down, shuffle it, and take one or two cards if he had a Cogwig to put in.
What?
He ended up going 2-1 with a red-white aggro deck because that's what was open, because other than me, nobody else would draft that. I have found that the gameplay of Canal Dredger is actually very similar to the pick a card at random, because what you're doing is you're selecting the open lane. You're taking what other people don't want. And in a cube, as opposed to retail limited, all the cards are good, right? All the cards have a home. So the cards that are at the end of the packs most of the time are the cards that are in an archetype that people don't want to play. As you said, three color cards, in my case, more aggro cards. Sometimes in like a more thematic cube, like maybe somebody has a cube themed around like Kaldheim, and other people are like, oh man, the elf deck is totally not supported. It is unplayable garbage. You're going to get all the elves. So picking Canal Dredger, especially in pack one, will give you a ton of cards. Pack three, you get, 7 cards. It's no
It
big
gives you
deal.
like backdoor into a archetype that you didn't even mean to be in.
If you pick at pack one, you get 21 cards. If you're playing 23 cards, you're going to get 21 cards that are mostly in the same kind of deck that is the underrepresented deck. So you might want to try Canal Dredger if you have an archetype in your cube that people don't draft very
Oh,
often
that's so
or that people
funny.
don't like. You can try that as a way to let people play that for free.
That reminds me of how when people are at pre-release and they draft two different decks at the same time and they'll just like switch between them.
Or the other thing you can do, like, if you think that, okay, I picked up a Canal Dredger and I want to try and build this deck, in your normal part of the pack, you're picking fixing lands or you're picking colorless equipment or you're picking something that's kind of like open. And then you see at the end of pack one, oh, I got 3 white 1-drops. That's open. And then you decide what you're playing in pack two.
Yeah.
Or, I got 3 Bant Flicker cards because everybody else won't play Bant Flicker. I guess I get to do what I want to do, right? If you're you.
Yeah, you get to take your fixing lands and then you get the Soul Herder last pick and you're like, yes.
Exactly.
Unless they picked up on it. They see that you have Canal Dredger and they're like, we can't let you in get the blink
That
cards.
is
And then they
okay.
cut the blink cards from you.
That is one of the things that does happen with Canal Dredger sometimes, is that it does slow down the draft a little bit because instead of the last pick, people go looking at 2 cards and they're like, I don't care, whatever, here, take one.
It's the hardest part of their day.
They look at the last 2 cards and then they go, who has the Canal Dredger? What kind of archetypes do they like to play normally? I don't know. I think maybe he's a blue player. I gotta keep the blue. And I'm like, my friend, it's the last card of the pack. We're all waiting for you. Just give him a card. It doesn't matter.
Yep. And another card that I love that I've had in multiple of my cubes, like I had it in my bank cube for a little while, my old legacy cube, is Aether Searcher. So this is a really weird card. It's a 7-drop, I think 7/5, that when you draft it, you reveal the next card that you draft after it. And then when you play the Aether Searcher, you get to tutor your deck or your hand and play the card that you drafted after the Aether Searcher for free. So it just creates these really funny moments where pack one, pick one, you take Aether Searcher, and then the person next to you is like, oh my God, there's Emrakul in this pack. I can't pass them Emrakul. Oh no. It puts people in these really weird situations, and I think it's one of the funniest Tinker targets.
That's awesome. I actually don't have experience with that one. I think I've seen it in an Conspiracy Cube or in some Conspiracy Draft or something, but I haven't actually cast or played against that. I do have a bunch of experience with the next one also, though. So Deal Broker is a 3-mana 2/3 looter, and it lets you make a trade after the draft. The problem with this one, because one of my friends has a Commander Cube, I think he started with 1 Deal Broker and then he tried like 3 Deal Brokers. The way that the card is worded, the person with Deal Broker can describe their deck or whatever, and then everybody gets to offer them one card. Then they get to choose and make a trade. That doesn't work great in real life. Sometimes, you're building your deck and somebody's like, "Oh, I got Wrath of God. I got Wrath of God. Do you want Wrath of God?" And then you go, "Oh, no, no, I'm aggro." And they go, "Oh, okay, sorry. Here, do you want a Porcelain Legionnaire?" And that's technically cheating. That's not how the card works. It also adds a lot of time to the end of the draft because you get three or four people arguing with each other about, actually, no, you should take my card. You should take this. Oh, no, you should take that one. I've had fun times with it, but you have to have the right crowd. Again, like I've had a draft of like 8 people where somebody has deal broker. Four of the people at the table say, "I'm not doing it. I'm not giving you anything. Go away. Leave me
Leave
alone."
me alone.
And the other 3 people are like, "I'll give you this. I'll give you that." I have traded somebody, I think it was a Wrath, it was like Supreme Verdict or something, that they then played against me in round 2 and crushed me with. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have traded them that for their deal broker. But of all of the conspiracy cards, it's one of the most playable creatures, right? Cogwork
Yeah,
Librarian,
it's just a
4 mana,
looter.
3/3. 3 mana, 2/3 looter is great. It's fine. Colorless card. So again, just be careful of your play group, but it can be quite fun.
I've definitely seen this card create some really funny moments where somebody sees that I took Deal Broker, and then in their pack they see, there's Ephemerate in this pack. I know Ian's gonna want Ephemerate. So they take the Ephemerate as the card they're planning on trading later on. It can create really interesting draft moments. A lot of these cards create almost politics during the draft,
Exactly.
unspoken.
One other caveat I will give to Deal Broker is that you basically have to ban it in team drafts because
Mm.
otherwise, one of the teams drafts it, and then everybody looks at their pools and they're like, "Oh, wait, you need this card. I'm going to trade you the other half of this combo." It falls apart pretty quick.
So Regicide is the next card we're going to be talking about. It's a black removal spell that you name a color. So I'll name blue. The person to your left names a color. They can name black, let's say. The person to your right names a color. They can name green. And now this kill spell is a 1 mana kill spell that kills creatures specifically of the colors named. So it creates some really interesting situations where, like we said, unspoken draft politics, where the person to your left names blue, and then it kind of gives you an idea of, well, they're probably not playing blue if they said that I can kill a blue creature. And the person to your right says black. They're probably not playing black unless they're trying to throw me off. So
Yeah.
it gives you some information during the draft.
So Paliano the High City is a land with the same thing. So player 1, 2, and 3 all name a color. It enters untapped. It taps for those 3 colors. So Regicide is like, it kills those creatures. Paliano taps for those colors. I've played with both of these fairly extensively in a wide variety of cubes out here. Paliano and Regicide, I think, are perfectly fun cards. They do slow down the draft a little bit as you're talking about it, but especially if you just have a Sharpie and a sticky note, or you write it down in your phone or whatever. You write Abzan or Bant or something like that. It's really easy to remember. And they're really fun and they're not overpowered. An untapped Triland is good, but it's not fetchable. A 1 mana kill spell is good, but so is Fatal Push. So I think those are really fun additions to the draft that get you thinking a little bit about what colors your opponents are playing and that are just easy adds to cubes.
Yeah, and those two cards are almost opposites in some ways because the Regicide, it gives you information on what the two players to either side of you are playing. With the Poliano, they have to guess what you're playing and try and pick the color that you're not in.
Well, also the other thing that I do a lot of times with Pollyanna when I'm sitting next to somebody, because I pick it sometimes, but I don't pick it that highly. I play a lot of monocolored decks or aggressive decks, is I will pick a color that I'm not.
Oh,
Say, I am Gruul aggro. This taps for blue. Please play blue. This is free blue. Here's blue fixing. It's like you're trying to push them into a thing. So it's kind of the same thing as Regicide. It's like, I am not this. So Regicide, you're naming a color that you're not because you don't want it to kill your creatures. Paliano, you're naming a color that you're not because you don't want them to draft spells of that color.
yeah, absolutely. They add a really interesting effect to the draft. And in a similar vein to Regicide, I had this card in my Peasant Cube. I had it in my old Legacy Cube. Such a fun card, Garbage Fire.
Oh, I love
So
that one.
it's 2 and a red for a burn spell that deals X damage to a creature. It deals damage depending on how many times it was passed during the draft. So it can create these really weird moments that people will see it in the pack and they'll say, oh, this is pick five. Oh, this is already a 3 mana deal five. And I know that this person's probably in burn, but I'm not gonna like hate draft it. And sometimes Garbage Fire will end up being like the best burn spell of all time. It'll be 3 mana, instant speed, deal 12 to a creature. It can be really strong and really fun. It's like a game of chicken if we'll take it.
So that one, and then there's a white tapper, custody something or other.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
pay white, tap target creature with power less than or equal to the number of cards noted with this. So like the same, like you pick a pack 13, it taps something that has mana value 13 or less. Tap an Emrakul.
That card's
Um,
pretty low power though. It's a
yeah,
three mana
it
like
is.
2/3 that
It's a three
maybe
mana two
taps a
three
creature.
tapper, right? Garbage Fire, even as a 3 mana sorcery speed deal five, is fine,
Mhm.
but with Ghostfire Slice and Unholy Heat and all this stuff, I don't think it's that powerful.
That's
Um,
true.
so when I've played with those, the most fun that I've had with those is in cubes with duplicates. Because if you have a cube with like two or three copies of Garbage Fire, then when you pick a Garbage Fire, it just cares about the highest number. So if
Yes.
you pick 12 Garbage Fire, then you might first pick a Garbage Fire out of the next pack. That's how it worked in Conspiracy Draft. It was very fun there. I've played that a few times. If it's singleton, it's fine. It's fun. Again, sometimes packs get mixed up in order. Sometimes people pass you a pack with 12 and then pass you a pack with 13 and they go, oh no, wait, where did I mess up? Garbage Fire can mess with that and can be a little bit annoying with that in a way that normally you just, okay, well, we'll fix the pack. Somebody has one card less or something like that. So that's a thing to keep in mind with all the cards that care about noting where it was drafted.
Talking about weird cards with noting where it was drafted is Archdemon of Poliano, which it's a 2 and 2 black for a 5/4 flyer. So it's pretty big guy. Maybe not as big as it used to be. Maybe in like 2014, 5/4 flyer for 4 was really good. It's still good, but it says that you have to take the next 3 picks of the pack at random. So it's a big guy, but you basically are giving up on your next 3 picks. So it's scary to take, but if you get it late in the pack, usually the last 3 picks, who cares too much? And you get a pretty good flyer. So in a lower power cube, it's a pretty weird but fun decision.
I have yet to play a cube where it was good. That is sad for me because I want it to be good, because this is exactly the kind of silly thing I like to do. One other thing to keep in mind is when you are passing those packs, you are not looking at the packs. The way it's worded, you just get past a pack and pick a card from it face down. So if you pick that before you've seen the pack's wheel, you don't know what you're even giving up on. If you pick that after the packs have wheeled, you can't read the signals from those 3 packs. So
You might
that is
just randomly hate draft someone.
well, yeah, you might randomly hate draft somebody, but you might also be like, pack one, oh, I picked this big black demon. This is great. And then the next 3 packs have no black cards in them, and you don't know that there's somebody sitting next to you playing black.
Or
Um,
you might also be in Storm or something and say, I have Brain Freeze and I really need Underworld Breach. And then if you take this Archdemon, you won't know if you're going to miss on it.
yeah, you might not even know that Underworld Breach was in pack one if you took the demon, and then pack two, you end up with Brain Freeze and LED, and you're just hoping for the next 2 packs for a thing that's already gone. So that's another downside for that card. But again, in like a lower powered thing with not as many combos or whatever, it seems so fun. It's the exact kind of chaotic energy I like to channel sometimes.
And there's another type of draft matter cards that don't directly affect the draft in the way that we've talked about, like revealing cards or something like that, but they do affect how you draft cards and how you take cards for your deck. And these are cards that care about basically what's in your sideboard. So I'll give an example. In my old Legacy Cube, I had Arcane Savant, which is a 5 mana 3/3, 3 blue. And before the game starts, you reveal an instant or sorcery card from your sideboard. And then when this creature enters, you cast that instant or sorcery for free. This was one of my favorite cards ever. My game store owner, Eric of Games IRL, he had a lot of the cards that we're talking about today in his cube. Shout out to Eric. This card, I would always try and do the most broken thing with, putting a time walk effect under it and then blinking at every turn, or something that would be a really strong removal spell, or mass bounce that would bounce itself back to your hand so you could bounce the whole board over and over. And it creates a really interesting draft decision because you might be in a blue deck And if you take this time walk effect, you can't put it in your deck because it's in your sideboard, but it creates this really powerful creature now.
So, of every card that you have talked about or mentioned today, other than Cogwork Librarian and Lore Seeker, which we talked about at the beginning and I have a bunch to talk about, I have the most to say about Arcane Savant. I love this card. It has been in my cube since I built my cube. I think it was the first batch of cards that I bought for my cube. I have played Arcane Savant in many other cubes. My friend Aqua has a wonderful cube where that is in there and it does a bunch of cool stuff. It does so many things. You can color wash cards. So, whether that's an ultimatum trying to do a bunch of different things, or just you're a high tide storm deck and you want to win with tendrils instead. Now you have a 5 mana blue tendrils. That's great. As you said, time walks and soul herder loops. We've seen that in my cube with Nexus of Fate on Arcane Savant. For a long time, it was basically only seen in my cube as a thing to do with upheaval. I once had a game against my friend Connor, who he said, I'm going to leave after this game, but I'll give you one more game, Joe. And I cast Upheaval against him with Savant 5 times
Yep,
that.
the mass bounce is crazy
It's crazy. It's crazy. The coolest
because
thing,
it bounces itself, so you can
it
keep doing
bounces
it over.
itself, you just keep doing it over and over again. You can reanimate it, you can flicker it. In Aqua's Cube, Arcane Savant plus Saw in Half is a 1 card
Yep,
combo.
one card infinite. That's what I was going to say. That's a big reason I had to cut it from cubes is like with Sublime Epiphany and
Epiphany, yeah.
Quasi Duplicate. There's just these one card infinites that I was like,
There's a
oh,
2 card infinite with it in my cube that is much cooler, which is either Shallow Grave or Corpse Dance under the Arcane Savant, and then you have Goblin Bombardment in play. So you sacrifice the Arcane Savant to the bombardment, and then you reanimate it with the reanimation.
ooh, that is spicy.
That's spicy and that's interruptible, and that's a 2 card thing. I play Powered Cube. I have a bunch of powerful combos. I try to make them balanced in as best I can, right? So usually they take at least 3 or so mana. Usually they take at least 2 cards, sometimes 3 cards. So that's a reasonable way. The coolest thing, though, with Arcane Savant, I still have to mention, happened about a month ago in my friend Josh's cube. He was drafting it, and he drafted Arcane Savant, and he drafted Flash, and he drafted Time Spiral. And he put Time Spiral under Arcane Savant, and then he would flash in the Arcane Savant. The Arcane Savant would enter, do the ETB, and then die, and then be shuffled back into the deck with Time Spiral and all this, and he would untap his lands and then keep doing it. And then he used that and then either Shieldred or Orcish Bowmasters to actually kill his opponents.
Ooh, that's so interesting.
It was a super, super cool little combo. So highly recommend Arcane Savant. Beware, that card is gas. It is so powerful. You need to if you're like, oh, I have a kind of lower powered legacy style cube. I want to try something new. Watch out. That will break it.
Yeah, this is the card that goes in the power pack. Like this card is really strong.
It's not quite that good, but like I would put it on a similar level as like Fable the Mirror Breaker of like
Yeah.
this is not a synergy card. This is a busted card. Beware.
And another card that I love is Volatile Chimera, which I also cut for power reasons from my old Legacy cube. It's a 3 mana creature. It basically says that you have to take 3 cards from your draft pool and have them be in your sideboard specifically for this card. It's a 3 mana 3/2 that you can pay 1 in a red to have it become a copy of a creature of the 3 at random. So let's say that you get Gristlebrand, Emrakul, Kozilek. Then you have a 3 mana 3/2 that the next turn you could pay 2 and have it become an Emrakul and annihilate your opponent. And it's a difficult card to build around because you have to get 3 really strong cards during the draft, or it's not that great. But I ended up cutting it because just it would create some feels bad games.
Again, I've played this in my friend Aqua's Powered Vintage Cube, but I haven't played it much in my cube or in other cubes. One of the things that I noted as a problem with it is that you want to draft these big creatures, but then you want to put them in your sideboard. So you can't run this in the same deck as Sneak Attack, which is another red cheat into place card. You can't run it in the same thing as like Reanimator or Show and Tell. And by taking those creatures and then just putting them in your sideboard for 1 card, you're kind of hate drafting the person picking those things. So I would not super recommend this because even though it's powerful, the effect it has on the draft, it's kind of like a spoiler. That's my 10 cents.
It's a very strange card. I maybe would try it again now that it's been like 8 years and power creep has gone crazy. That just like a 3 mana 3/2 that has to basically attack is whatever, but it's still very strong. And let's jump into one more card here. So we have Collar of the Untamed. This is a similar card that I had in my old Legacy Cube. So it's three and a green for a 2/4 that says before you shuffle your deck, just like the other ones, you can reveal a creature from your deck and exile it and have it in your sideboard, basically. You can pay X and tap color the Untamed to make a copy of the creature that you exiled. So it's kind of the green Arcane Savant in that you can keep making a creature over and over again instead of a spell. So this card is a lot of fun. You can do some crazy things like putting a Peregrine Drake under it or some strange infinite combo piece. But it's actually a little slow. I mean, it's a 4 mana 2/4. You have to pay X and tap it. This one is definitely not as strong as Arcane Savant, but it can do some really fun stuff.
Yeah, the thing with the Arcane Savant is that by converting instants or sorceries into enter the battlefield triggers, it allows you to abuse them in new, unique ways, like Geeky Cheeky. The thing with this card is that you're making a creature make a bigger creature, which is cool. And when you can repeatedly do it in tokens and copies, make a bunch of copies of Pyrogoyf nowadays, that would be crazy. But it's still a creature that has to exist and untap, and you have to have another better creature in the sideboard that you're not playing instead of it. So I could see it being not as busted.
Yeah, I could say in like probably in like a legacy light power cube. This could be a fun card to try. I might try it again. And you can do some funny stuff because it makes tokens. You can copy the tokens. You can do some funny stuff with this.
Doubling season stuff. But put it in like a commandery thing or a regular cube style thing, just like something fun, something silly.
Yeah, throw it in. Why not? And I love these draft modder cards because they can really just add a uniqueness to your cube and create these unusual and memorable moments. Same with things like conspiracies or doing weird seeding of packs. Just throwing in these cards into your cube, and maybe not every week. Similar to that I talked about with the regular cube with Anthony Maddox. Sometimes just throw in some cards and it creates some really fun experiences. And I think these are great for that.
A lot of my local cubes actually lean more into this silly part of Magic. Other regions have like old border stuff or unique rules things, and those are cool and wonderful and unique and great. A lot of my players just like dumb, silly stuff. We have a Mystery Booster themed cube where it's only cards that have been printed in Mystery Booster, and so there's a bunch of playtest cards. There's a bunch of silly cards there. I run, in addition to all these, I run Cogwork and Lore Seeker and Arcane Savant. I run some cards from Alchemy that I've made work in paper. I run a few custom cards. People love this. Magic is fun. Magic is designed to be fun. Everybody has fun when they're winning. Make it so people have fun when they're losing too, right? Like if you lose after a 25-minute mid-range mirror because your opponent top decked a creature on turn 37 while you top decked a land on turn 37, that sucks. That's boring. If you lose on turn three because your opponent rolled a six on Comet 14 times in a row and there was nothing that you could do, you just put your hands in the air and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go get some ice cream. That's how I feel about some of these conspiracies, some of these draft matters cards, some of the uncards, all of this. We mentioned Booster Tutor earlier. There's a few other ones that start sub games I've played. Countdown is a one is by far the best version of that because it's a 5 mana spell, starts a sub game, but you each start with one life, so the game does not take very long to do the sub game. I've even played a custom card that started a sub draft before, where we did an additional draft. It was myself, my opponent, and anyone else at the table that wanted to join us. We did a draft with all of the remaining cards of my cube. Now, my cube's a 540, so we were able to do a 6-player normal draft and then do a 6-player draft with the rest of the cube. I called the card Shahrazad, but for draft. We drafted, and then we each played one round with one game each. And then the winner of that round got to add their entire pool from the new draft to their pool from the original draft.
Oh,
The losers of that round got to add one card from their new draft to their original draft. So it was a silly thing. I don't do that every week, but we did that on the 4th of July because we started at like 2 o'clock with the cube drafting. We had some barbecue, we had some hot dogs and some beans and like all this. And so 2 in the afternoon, you do the first round of cube and then you're like, oh, we're going to do another draft halfway through. And it's fun. It's silly. I think a lot of people, especially with the rise of like all these cube events, are really leaning into the other things around cube. And this is a way to kind of get that other stuff into the actual cube itself. It does not work when you're playing Moto and you're trying to do the trophy leaders and you're, grinding about how to be the best player. But if you're hanging out with your buddies and you're cracking brewskis, it's way more casual and funny. And when your buddy's like, oh, I have Draft Broker, trade me something, please, please, please. That's the perfect vibes for that.
yeah, I totally agree. Not every cube has to be some cutthroat, play all the most efficient cards. Sometimes you build a cube to just play all these weirdo cards that where else are you going to play them?
Exactly.
And Joe, it's been great having you on. I would love to have you on again in the future and have some more discussion. I look forward to seeing you at some Cube events soon. And everyone definitely go listen to Joe's Week in Magic.
If you don't, if this was too much, don't listen to Joe's Weekend Magic because it's even more.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap up here?
If you want to come play Magic with me and you live in San Francisco, Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, anywhere out there, hit me up and I am always up for games.
Yes. And everyone, thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. As we said, check out Joe's Week in Magic. If you happen to be in the area, go to California Cube Champs, and we'll see you all next week. Please subscribe and all that, and stay tuned for more episodes, and have a good day.